no smoking weed, no parties, no alcohol, no anything. We want you to drop out of society and only do what we say. And we're going to run you, and we're going to develop you, and we're going to crush you, and you're going to do all kinds of sand work, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, run beach, in and out of the ocean. We're going to run you and get you ready. Anyway, when I went in 70, let's see, we were class 7403, and when we went in, there was 150 in our class, and as it turned out, we graduated 16 with rollbacks, but 7 of our original class. And I was amazed that then they made me team leader of the 7. And I couldn't believe that of all things that they made me a leader and the leader, but also that all the good guys quit. You know, of that class of 150, we had some real studs come in. We had some specimens that were they were animals. And yet they didn't have the mental framework. They hadn't been tested the way that these pararescue instructors were going to test them. And they'd freak out and they'd quit. And we'd beg these guys, don't quit, don't quit. And they just say, I'm done. Ring the bell, we're done. And it was an amazing thing to then look at us who were average guys. We weren't the guns, we weren't the big studs. We were on a scale of 1 to 10, we were the 6 and 7s, the 8s and 9s and 10 had already quit. And we looked at each other and we said, why are we still here? And the point is that we learned how to be resilient, but we learned how to be scrappy. We learned how to have that grit thing. We learned how to hang in there and not get rocked. And I credit the guys that trained me before I went in, that they said, this kind of stuff's going to happen when you get in there. So we're going to teach you that pain is your friend and it won't kill you. You can be miserable, it won't kill you. And so it worked out. Anyway, I did my 4 years, and then they had budget cuts. And when cuts came along to my unit, the word came down, hey, listen, we need 20% of the unit to quit, get out, or change into something else. NAM is over, and I did not go to NAM. I was in a class that was getting ready to be sent to Vietnam, and then Kissinger signed the peace accords, and that thing was over. And so we were all looking at each other like, what are we going to do? And they didn't know what to do with us either. But anyway, I did my 4 years. I spent my whole time up in Alaska, taking bodies off Mount McKinley. Our unit was responsible for the North Pole to Washington and from Canada to Hawaii. And so we had all the rescue work in that area, which scuba, water work, mountain work, and, whatever kind of work. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. But when we were told 20% had to get out, my senior master sergeant, he said, hey, Owens, you young guys, if the old guys don't want to get out, you're gone. And so sure enough, the old guys didn't want to get out. And so they said, you young guys, you probably have to think about doing something else. And so I got out. And it was funny because many of my friends were able to stay in, and they stayed there 20 years or 30 years and became commandants of the PJ school, blah, blah, blah. So it was really fun to stay related to them and talking to them for those next 20, 30 years, saying what kind of kids are coming in, what kind of stuff are we doing, what's the new thing. And anyway, to this point now that sometimes I get to go down to Lackland and I get to live in the dorm with 150 students and be sort of like a senior guy, a father figure. And I take 3 or 4 days and go down and live there and, do chow at 4 in the morning and watch them run and yell at them like the instructors and have a great time. And then at night, get to talk to them for about 30, 45 minutes before they go to sleep at 8:30. And so it's really fun to still be back in the PJ program. And I really enjoy working with kids. Anyway, I learned a lot being a pararescueman, and I learned a lot about hard work. When I got out, I read Sports Illustrated about this crazy thing called an Ironman. And that was in 1979. That was May 18th article, 1979, when they just had the second Ironman in Honolulu. And when I read that article, I said, I think I can do that. I can swim, I can bike, and I can run. And it was an ocean swim, and I was an ocean guy. And so I ended up on my honeymoon saying to my wife, "Hey, you want to go to the islands?" All I got to do is raise some money, and we have a honeymoon. So I dared all these people, and they all said, "You can't do that thing. I mean, that's stupid. You can't do that." I said, "Great, sponsor me. Let me see if I can." So I raised a bunch of money and went to Honolulu and did the last year of Ironman in Honolulu, and that was 1980. I borrowed a bicycle, and I took my swim trunks and a T-shirt, and just showed up. And that's what we did back then. Guys were drinking beers during the early days during the Ironman, and it, it was more of a party than it was an athletic event. But that was the year that the real athletes began to show up, year 3. Anyway, found that I liked that, and finished, I think I got 39th out of 100. The first year was 12. The second year, I think, was 15. My year, because of that Sports Illustrated article, there was 100 guys that showed up. And then next year it moved to Kona. And anyway, I became World Championships in Kona in what moved over there. And I did Kona in 2003. And yeah, I've done 12 Ironmans over 40 years. And so there's only 2 of us left in the world that have done Honolulu and Kona. All the rest of the guys are dead or gone or something. So it's pretty fun to still be knocking out stuff at this age. Anyway, that's sort of the story there.
All right, so let's hop back in the Wayback Machine. I've had many special ops guys like you, like the PJs and Delta Force and Rangers and the SEALs. And when they talk about the selection process, most of them say, I was either going to do that last push-up or I was going to die. There was no quit. And they said that was the reason why most of them made it through. And a lot of them, like I said to my friend John McCaskill, he's a retired Navy SEAL commander. I said, bro, you look more like my accountant than you did a Navy SEAL that I thought what Navy SEAL looked like. He says, well, most of the guys that make it through don't look like they should have made it through. So when you were going through the PJs, when you were going through the selection process, was your mindset, I'm not going to quit no matter what?
Yeah. I just told my instructor, I'd rather die, than quit. And so you can do whatever you want. And fortunately, again, as I had been training, these guys had told me, now expect this kind of stuff. And so fortunately, when my instructor got on his knee one day, I'm out there in that Texas sun and it's hot in that dead grass. And I'm, in my fatigues, and I'm just sweating like a pig. I'm in the push-up position, and he gets down on one knee, and he says to me, "Hey, Owens, yes, Sergeant." He goes, "I like you." I said, "Yes, Sergeant. Glad you do, Sergeant." I don't know. He's 30 something. I'm 22 or whatever. Anyway, he says, "I have to tell you something." I said, "What, Sergeant?" He said, "I have to crush you." And I said, "Yes, Sergeant. Thank you for crushing me." And he said, "You don't understand. We do not allow quitters to become pararescuemen. And I have to teach you not to quit. And I have to teach you to be tougher. And so I'm going to keep crushing you because I know you will respond. So that someday some man's going to be grateful that you went through this training because you didn't quit on them and they didn't die." And I said, "Yes, Sergeant. Thank you very much, Sergeant. You have permission to crush me." And he just, it wasn't just me, but he just began to grind us. I mean, we did more burpees, more runs. We did more things than we ever thought. And our class ended up going 13 straight weeks of 6 days a week. And so we were just broken. I mean, he said, "Get up, we're going to run today. We're going to break records today. You're going to get crushed and you're going to love it. You're going to be pararescueman." We said, "Yes, Sergeant." Anyway, he was such an influential guy in my life that I went to his funeral this last year up in Idaho. I just wanted to stand there, put my beret on and look at the casket and say, "Thank you for making me the man, that I ended up being." Because this guy was just a tremendous sergeant, and he was profound. And many pararescuemen remember him and are grateful that they were crushed by him in the way that he did that. So it was one of those moments where you just sort of say, you can do whatever you want. I'm just not going to quit, and you're going to help me not quit. And you don't want me to quit. And, you know, there's a time when they're really, really just F bombing you the whole time. And then there's a time after guys begin to quit where they begin to talk to you like you're normal people. And, and that's when they begin to say, you know, we think you guys have talent. We need you to make it. We're going to make you miserable, but we want you to make it. And when you have an instructor say, we want you to make it, it makes it a lot nicer. Maybe it's an Air Force thing. I work with Navy guys now, at SEAL Fit, and they're not quite the same as the Air Force guys. And I tell them too, like, this is a different culture over here. You Marines and Navy guys, maybe like Army.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got to say, I love my pararescuemen. I love, like, my brother-in-law is in the Coast Guard Reserves. I love the Coast Guard. You guys, they don't ever get the respect that they deserve. So I always give them big shout outs, because anytime I watch Deadliest Catch, I'm like, holy shit, that is probably the most awesome people I have ever met, to jump out of into freezing water to save somebody else's bacon. That's the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, when you watch Deadliest Catch, it's a trip to think that, yeah, we used to do night scuba jumps out there, in the wintertime when it's snowing. You stick your head out that 130 and that snow would hit you in the face. And that crew chief didn't want to stick his head around the corner. You put that visor down even at night, because that thing would just hit you, and you'd jump in that 33-degree water. And it was a trip. It was an interesting thing, saving lives out there.
All right, so now because I want to dig a little bit deep on your transitioning out of the military. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, I did 23 years in the military. I was with GNC for over 30, and I loved pre-workouts, but they all tasted like ass. So I came out with my own pre-workout coffee, which tastes amazing. Twice the energy, no crash, all made by veteran hands. It's all hand roasted. And the best part of it, 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with PTSD and homelessness. So guys, if you want to drink amazing coffee, but support an amazing mission, write coffee down below, and I'll get that information to you. Also, starting January 1st, I decided it's time for me to take my health back, and I wanted to get healthy again. So I started getting rid of sugars and stuff like that. So a brand new company said they want to sponsor us. And I know you guys can't see it, but they're called Buzzy Bees Honey, and they're a natural honey. A friend of ours, Sam, is actually the beekeeper, so he actually makes all the honey. And I've been using that instead of using sugar. And so far, I've dropped 6 pounds, and my sugar has dropped from over 300 to 114 this morning. So it's really helping me out. So if you guys love coffee, if you love honey, write honey down below, and I'll get you that information. So now let me know, Rob, let me ask you a question, because I found, and I've had you're like 630th interview, something like that, of all veterans. And a lot of us, when we get out, like you were forced out. Me, I got hurt and medically retired. A lot of us, when we get out of the military, we no longer have a job. We no longer have the companionship and the friendship, and we no longer have a mission. And unfortunately, sometimes that leads to a bottle of whiskey and a revolver in our hands. So, and the military, when you get out, they really don't give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing, so you pretty much become a man on an island. What was your getting out of the military like?
I had, fortunately, just the opposite experience. I had the GI Bill. And so first, I just got back in school. But second of all, I hooked myself up with an organization, and the organization was a smuggling organization. And so as soon as I got out, I began to smuggle documents in and out of the Soviet Union. And so I went to school, and on spring break, and Christmas break, and summer break, I went to Europe, and I got with a group of underground people. And we went in and took Christian literature in, and then we smuggled Helsinki Peace Accord violations out from secret cities in the Soviet Union. And so I was fortunate that I said, hey, I'm bored. I want to do something, So I found a way to begin to do that. And that kept me focused and kept my attention. So I began to take German and I took Russian. And I felt that I was going to be spending a lot more time in Europe working with these underground folks that were having a real tough time. So that's what I did while I went to university. And I was able to graduate from university with no school debt. So I transitioned easily. I knew I wanted to finish my college and stuff, and went over and did so.
All right. So while you're doing that kind of stuff, obviously it's not exactly, you can't just walk down the street holding documents and say, I'm bringing them back to the U.S. So obviously you had to do some undercover stuff, but also you had to learn how to read the room. You had to learn how to talk to people. You had to learn to do what you did. So were there's a lot of classes on how to do that kind of stuff?
No, I was fortunate. When I got out of the military, people would say to me, do you train guys? And I'd say, what do you want to be trained in? And they'd say, I don't know, why don't we come over and talk to my staff or this group or business group. And people hadn't heard a whole lot about pararescue. And so I said, yeah, I'm a pararescueman, sort of like a Navy SEAL guy, but in the Air Force, but we're medical. We saved those guys. Anyway, as it turned out, that opened up a lot of doors for consulting, business consulting. And so I began to do leadership management training. And I learned to stand in front of groups and talk, train, use a whiteboard, all those kind of things, and begin to teach. And so that ability of being able to just talk to groups of 10 or 15 or 100 or whatever, 1,000, took me to 30 nations. And the largest group I've ever spoken in front of is 50,000 in Mexico City. And so for about 25 years, I did consulting work on the side. And I got to speak in front of groups and do lectures and those kind of things. And so I was very fortunate that if you can speak to 5, you can speak to 10.
Yeah.
If you can speak to 10, you could probably speak to 20. And just put up some more chairs, you got 50. And pretty soon, it's not a big deal. How many's in the room, I'm going to tell you the same thing where it's 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever. And it just worked out for me. I was very fortunate.
Well, now I lost 80% of my vision about 3 years ago. That's why I started the podcast. But my hearing got a lot better. And a lot of times when I have a guest like yourself, I'll pick out certain words that you say. And for me, what you said earlier when you first started talking was something along the lines of hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard. And like I had Mr. Lee Steinberg on the show. I think he had like 8 number 1 draft picks in the NFL. He was an agent for. And he said, I can tell whether a guy's going to succeed in the NFL just by sitting with them for 10 and 15 minutes to know if they have it or if they don't have it. And we talked about Tom Brady, how even when Tom was a rookie with New England, he would get there 2 hours early and stay 2 hours late because he knew that, like you're saying, hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and what some of the things you've seen in the past in your life?
Yeah, I think, I'm a paid coach now, and I work at SEAL Fit. SEAL Fit is a CrossFit made for Navy SEAL development training. It's in Encinitas, California. And we have all kinds of kids come through. Besides doing the Air Force work, where I get to go be with the kids in the dorms, we see all these wannabe kids come through. And what we really find out is the term, as you know, is why. What's your why? And if your why isn't where it should be, you won't make it. And so you've got to have a reason. You've got to have a vision, a reason of this is the only this. Like when I went in, my girlfriend said to me, if you leave me and go in the military, I won't be with you when you get out. I said, see ya. And I've been going out with her for a while, and my mom and dad were Republicans. And they said, if you go to war, go to Vietnam, these problems are going to happen. And we're pretty disappointed that you're doing this. at the end of the war. And I said, sorry, see ya. And so if you don't have a why that's unshakable, and most people don't want something that bad. And I knew growing up that if I wanted to date a certain girl, I'd move heaven and earth to try to get a date with her. Or if I want to go snow skiing because the snow fell, I'd find a way to get to the mountain. Or if I wanted money, I found a way to get a job. I found that the things that I really wanted, I'd find a way to do it. And so when I look at kids today, or I look at adults today, I mean, talk's cheap. And so I look them in the eye, and say, you want to lose weight? Why? Tell me why. And tell me if you're a liar. And tell me if, why you're going to back off and, this is really going to happen. And usually they quiver a little bit like, yeah, ironic. Well, but see, everybody wants to be a winner, but no one wants to have to compete. No one wants to have the battle. People want to be an overcomer, but they don't want to have to overcome anything. And so the journey is, as Goggins would say, is you got to embrace the suck every day. And I tell my students and my guys that I coach, you've got to do something hard every day that you don't want to do. And I don't know what that is, but there's something that you want to do that you shouldn't do, whether it's eat that donut or smoke that cigarette or step too late or whatever it is. You've got to find something every day that's going to develop your character and develop your resiliency and your reason for what you want to do. And we find that most people don't want something that bad. Talk's cheap and it feels good for the moment. When I trained at 66 to do the 777, 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents, when I did my 12th Ironman right before that, and I did Mark Devine's 50-hour nonstop Navy SEAL training, and I'm the oldest guy that's ever done that at 66. When I set my mind to doing 5 events at 66 to see if I could do something at 66 that I wanted to do at 20, could I get my body back in my 20s in my 60s? I spent 3 years, and I got up at 4:30 in the morning every morning, 5 days a week, and got up at 6:30 on Saturdays because the workout was later. And people said, you're crazy. And I said, yeah, but I want this. I want it that bad. I want to see if I can knock out these 5 of endurance events. And most of you say it's impossible. Joe DeSena from Spartan Games said, Owens, that's stupid. What are you doing? I said, hey, Joe, it's stupid to you. It's not stupid to me. Suffer now, glory later. I'm going to see if I can do in my 60s what I could try to do in my 20s. Anyway, people would not understand. They didn't see me for 3 years. I just went dark, went through 2 surgeries on my shoulders, got a surgery on my knee, all kinds of stuff through training for this stuff. And people said, why don't you just act your age? And I said, because I don't want to act my age. I don't want to be like you. I don't want to be fat, look pregnant, diabetes, blood pressure, high, heart disease. I want to stay healthy. And I want to see if I can age healthy. And I want to see if I can stay in the game so I can talk to kids instead of me telling old stories all the time about, and they go, oh, Mr. Owens, we heard that one before. Or they just nod their head like, there he goes again, telling that old story again. I wanted to have new stories. I wanted to have new wins. And most people don't want what they say they want that bad. And you can find out in time if they really, and again, you show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And so winners hang with winners and losers hang with losers. And so, and excuse-minded people find excuse-minded people to give them excuses on why they shouldn't do what they want to do. And so it's important that you have that why, and then you set your heart, you set your mind, and you do all the research and you get everything out of the way, and then you focus. And that's why TB12 called me up, and said, hey, will you be on Tom Brady's podcast? You're 24 years older than him. What would you tell Tom? Tom would like to know, you're 24 years down the road and he's in shape. And I said, I don't have anything to teach Tom. Tom's doing great. I'm following Tom, he's my hero. Just stay in the game, Tom. Just keep showing the pundits that you can do what they say you can't do. And all that's to the listener too. It's We all have wants and desires, but you got to pay the price, and you got to find out how bad you want it. You got to pay that price, and all of us can do that, whether it's losing weight or get a degree or whatever it may be.
Yep. No, you talked about two amazing people there. First of all, Joe DeSena. Somebody was said, "Well, you're crazy to start a Spartan race. Who's going to want to do that?" But
Right.
he did it, and now he's world famous, and he's got a great TV show that I don't miss an episode that he does. But then we also have Tom Brady, which I love the word focus. Follow one course until successful. He's done football. That's it. He didn't focus on I'm going to make a rap album. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He focused on football, and that was it. And I think that's what made him great, because any talk, any workout, every food, everything he did was all about just that one focus, winning champions and becoming the greatest of all time. And I think a lot of, especially guys and girls, when they become an entrepreneur, they get shiny object syndrome and they lose focus. So talk about that focus.
You know, there's something about, again, when you get your why squared away, people say, gosh, did you have to sacrifice a lot? And when you like it, it's never a sacrifice. It's a joy to stay focused. It's fun to stay focused. It's not work to stay focused. And so there's something about finding what you really like and being willing to sacrifice for it, which will turn out not to be a sacrifice because you're enjoying it. And just, this one thing I do, not 100 things, but this, a violinist works those 10,000 hours. Um, you know, People who have specialties, they spend their time focused. They don't do a whole bunch of stuff. They do one thing for a long time. And I think that when we teach our kids that there's 20 times more potential in them than they've ever allowed someone to pull out of them. And we say to that kid, you have so much more talent, but you've never learned how to let somebody keep you in the game while you're focusing and develop you. And so that young person will say to us, okay, I want to be focused, develop me. And we'll say, are you sure? And they'll say, yeah. And then we'll say, okay, here's what we do. And many people know how to focus, like making money or raising their kids or whatever it is. You can have more than one focus, but you got to focus, and you got to find out what is a priority to you, and do that priority over and over again, because it's a joy, not because you're stuck.
All right, so let me, like I said, I've had plenty of interviews. I've anywhere from E5s to all the way to O7, 05, O6s. And a lot of them say, even though they were colonels, lieutenant colonels in the military, once they hit the streets, the civilian streets, it's a whole different ballgame than it is when they were in the military. So a lot of them had to dig down and find their why. So how does a person go about, you get out of the military on a Friday, Monday, you're back on the streets in civilian world. How do you find that why? What are some steps they can do to find that why?
Well, you can go talk to John McGaskill,
Yeah.
and and he'll help you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't start thinking about that the day before you get out. While you're in the military, you're not going to be there forever. And you need to begin to be broader than the military. You need to begin to think 5 years before you get out, 4 years, whatever it is. What do I really want to do when I get out? And begin to then develop the opportunities and study to find out what's needed to do those other things out there. When I talk to vets, I say to them, when did you begin to decide to get out? And they'll give me some answer, and I'll say, and did you start a program then? Education or mentoring or something? Did you start something to get ready for that? And most of them didn't. Most of them said, I can't, or I don't have time, or this or that. And I say, the problem is, if you're not thinking ahead, if you're not doing your due diligence and thinking ahead, you can multitask. You can do this, but you can think ahead. You're going to get stuck. And so I talked to a lot of vets who are just in that situation of, what am I going to do? Or now that I'm out, what should I do? And it's hard to then change gears when there's no one there to crack the whip, or no one there to tell you to get out of bed, or no one to, there's just all that discipline's gone, or that order, that structure. And so when I speak to vets, I try to speak to vets, especially 2 years before they're going to do something, and say, what's your game plan? Be smart. Don't be stupid. Be smart. Get that game plan. Begin to figure out what you're good at, or what you would, I tell guys, what would you do if money was no problem? If all your money was taken care of, what would you do? What would be your passion? What do you like to do? Because if you find that, you never work a day in your life, because you're doing what you like to do. And I send guys to places to get personalities, personality tests, to find gifting tests, to take tests, to find out how they're wired, besides what the military told them to do. And a lot of guys, once they begin to do those personality tests, those gift tests, they find out that they're really gifted in certain things. And those things they become passionate about those when they get out, if they knew that they could make a living doing that. And so we try to then get vets aligned with people like that they want to be like, or who have done those kind of things, started businesses or whatever, and get mentoring. Humility is a good thing, and asking for help. And I'm fortunate that my life is not mine because of me. I had men take an interest in me and tell me, you're gifted in this, you're gifted in that, you can do this, you can do that. And I asked for help. I asked people out to lunch specifically, hey, read my mail. What do you think about this? What do you think I'm good at? What do you think I like, should blah, 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 to see if was what they were seeing in me was what I felt I should do. And it worked out. So you got to be proactive about, every decade you change. And so you got to find somebody about 20 years older than you, or somebody successful at what you're doing, and say, hey, how'd you do it? I'd like to do it. Would you mentor me? What books should I read? I mean, I had 3 mentors. When I got out, I had a mentor who had kids, and his kids were really good, and I had 5 kids. And I thought my kids were squirrely. My kids were getting in trouble and stuff. So I went to this guy and said, hey, listen, you got good kids. My kids are football players, fighters, blah, blah, blah. How do you have good kids? And he's began to have lunch with me once a month. And he'd give me a book. He'd say, read this book and come back next month and we'll talk about it. And he'd point things out to me. And then I went to a guy who made money. This guy just sneezed and made money. And I thought, how do you do that? How do you make money like that? So I said to him, hey, we have lunch. How do you do that? My dad never taught me how to do what you do. Here, read this book. Do this, see me next month. So I had one for that. Then I got another mentor for marriage. I went and said, how do you do marriage? I mean, my mom and dad didn't raise me to know how to do this stuff. Like my mom and dad, I never heard them argue once in my life. And that's pretty dysfunctional. And so I didn't watch them fight. They just got along. Or they went in the back bedroom and argued. I get married, my wife likes to fight. Or whatever. I don't know what to do, Sometimes I just feel like I'm going to, explode. Anyway, so I go to somebody, how do you do marriage? So I got 3 mentors on purpose. When I got out and I did my other job, I went to consultants and I said, how did you do that? Or how did you get that gig? Or how did you get that company? And I asked them, what's the secret sauce? Or what would you say for a guy like me? And because men poured themselves into me, spent time with me, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think vets need to show humility and find people that are good at what they do, that they think that they want to do, and go ask them for lunch. I said to this one guy, I said, listen, I'll give you $100 to go to lunch with me. Call the secretary. I want to take him to lunch. I'll give him $100. He didn't need the $100, but I want to show I was desperate. I'll give you $100 if you'll go to lunch with me. Just let me have an hour of your time. I got a list of questions. And of course, he went to lunch with me and even bought the lunch. He just wanted to see who the guy was who would give him $100 to have lunch. I got on an airplane. I flew to another city, rented a car, went to the restaurant he told me to, showed up there. Hi, I'm so-and-so, here's, keep your $100. Just sit down. And we talked. I asked for an hour and he gave me 2.5 hours. So if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way to ask that question or find that person or reach out. Um, but you snooze, you lose. So uh, I hope that helps somebody.
No, that's great. And like we're talking about with TB12, he'll say, "I'm willing to work 80 hours a week so I can enjoy that 4 hours on the field." He said, so a lot of times, even though you may love your job, you may love a lot of things about it, but like you said, there's going to be some stuff that sucks. And unfortunately, even like in the podcast game, the average podcast doesn't last over 12 episodes because people don't realize that it entails work.
A lot of work.
And a lot of work, a lot of building relationships and stuff like that. So, talk to us a little bit about, sometimes, like you said, you got to put in the hard work. Even if you love it, sometimes you got to do shit that you really don't want to do so you can enjoy the work that you are doing.
Yeah, I think that all of us have stuff we don't want to do that we have to do. I don't think that anything is all just about, oh, I just like every single thing. Um, I find that a lot of stuff is just maintenance work. You gotta do the simple things over and over again. Not exciting. No one's there to say "attaboy." No one gives you strokes like, "Hey, champ, you're great." You just got to do stuff that that's. If you can't motivate yourself, if you can't get out of bed, if you can't get a hold of yourself and say, "Listen, I want it this bad," then you're going to have a challenge. And so, some people need a boss, and some people um, will be bosses. And I would hope that each one listening to me here can be their own boss to themselves, at least. That they don't have to follow something that somebody else is always telling them what to do, but they can think for themselves and they can grow and mature and evolve where they don't need to be told stuff. They can just do hard work. And um, hard work is good for the soul. So, you know, I just think that if you want a cakewalk, you'll be broke. And you won't you won't go very far in life. Your kids want you to be a hero, and they want you to show them things, and you want to be able to say, "Come on, kids, I've learned some things. Let me give you this deposit." And they go, "I don't want that, Dad." You go, "Yes, you do. You just don't know it." And I'm gonna help you grow up and learn some stuff. And they, all my kids have come back and pretty much repented to me and said, "Hey, you were right, Dad. Not about everything, but thank you for raising me this way and teaching me this and teaching me that." And hard work produces for us.
All right, so then let me ask you, talk about hard work. I'm a big sports guy, as you can tell. TB12 was in the league for 20 years. He won 7 Super Bowls. So that means 13 years he didn't win the Super Bowl. Kobe Bryant was in the league 20 years, only won 5 rings. So that means 15 years, 15 of those years, he didn't win the ring. And I'm sure that, when you had your 12 races, there were some races where you did not finish exactly where you wanted to be. So why did you not quit? And why did you keep coming back, even though you didn't finish the way you wanted to finish that year?
I like to do sort of like what Goggins says. Goggins has this thing, and I had it too. I wonder if, I just wonder if, I wonder if I could pull that off. And so for me, it was never about the other people. It was always about testing myself. I wonder if, and I wonder if my training, or I wonder if this technique or this stuff would work. And so, when I did the 7 marathons, when you get done with that marathon, there's nobody there to clap for you. You know, you're running across the Antarctica at 20 below zero. And when you get done, you just cross this line and there's no one going, "That a boy, champ." You know, what a great job. There's no cheering section. What you do is you high five yourself. You go, "Good job, Owens."
Self high five.
You high five yourself. "Hey, good job, Owens. You're a champ, man." And you talk to yourself. There's no one around. And if you need somebody else to motivate you, you probably won't do it. You've got to be self-motivated. You've you've got to you've got to have that inner thing inside you that says, "I want this," and it was worth it. And the the winning is in the journey. It's not crossing the finish line. Crossing the finish line is nice, but it's the journey of developing yourself during that time frame of dieting or whatever it is that's a struggle for you. It's those are the things that I remember. This morning I'm in my CrossFit. I'm the old guy in the CrossFit. I'm 71 years old, and all these kids, they're looking at me. Hey, Mr. Owens, I think you can do another rep. I go, okay, I think I can, and I get pushed, and I enjoy the journey of all that. So I'm just saying to the listeners, you've got to have some motivation for change and for growth. And then you've got to put yourself around people that are positive, that are dreamers, that are thinking about stuff, that are accomplishing things, because that is contagious. It'll get on you. And if you hang out with complainers and whiners and losers, then you'll probably be like them. I don't have any friends per se my age. None. On purpose. Because they want me to act 70. And I don't want to act 70. I don't feel like I'm 70 inside. I feel like I'm 40 or 50 or something. And if I hang out with 40 and 50-year-olds, they go, good job, coach. Or good job, Mr. Owens. Knock out another one. You can do that. Look at that. And all of a sudden, I hang around with positive, energetic, fun people, and I get caught up in that emotion and that environment as well. And I say to a lot of folks, if you're hanging out with drinkers, you'll be a drinker. If you hang out with dope smokers, you'll be a dope smoker. If you hang out with fat people, you'll be fat. You've got to figure out who you want to hang with, because birds of a feather flock together, and you can tell where you're going to be by the people that you associate with. And so I spend time with healthy people, energetic people, accomplishing people, fun people who are dreaming about goals and dreams. And they do that while they're in the gym. Gym's not their world, but they're adding value to their life in the gym. And then they go out and they do these creative things. And the listeners can do the same thing. But it takes that, do I really want to grow? Do I want to change? Do I want to be healthy? For me, I have no medical records. I'm adopted. I don't have any idea. One of the doctors said to me a long time ago, he said, hey, Robert, the best health insurance you can have is to be healthy, because you don't have a clue what's in your bloodline. And so we would encourage you, since you don't know when you're going to go bald, and you don't know when you're going to do this, you're going to do that, it behoove you to stay healthy. And so I made a point, plus it was fun, to say, you know what, I don't know what's going to come and beat me up, but I'd rather be healthy when it hits me, versus unhealthy. When I got COVID, I said to the doc, I said, hey, doc, he goes, you got some dead friends, but they had pre-existing conditions. You didn't have any pre-existing conditions. And that's why you made it through COVID the way you did. And I had a 104 temperature for 7 straight days, in and out of fevers. I was in bad shape. And all I could think about is, I wonder what it's be like when I get out and run again, what these lungs are going to be like. And so I'm fortunate that I've chosen to be healthy because it works for me. Plus I get on the floor with my grandkids and get up versus getting on the floor and not being able to get up.
Yeah. Well, like our friend Michael down below said, sometimes you have to embrace the suck, and it's sometimes the suck is a good thing. Sometimes, like you said, you're dealing with COVID, but you're sucking it up. You're going to get healthy because you want to run again. You have that reason. You have that, that why. But I want to ask you, like when I wrote my first book, it was very cathartic because it ripped a lot of old wounds that had to be healed. And I love your book, by the way. I'm on my second iteration. So it's on my coffee table. So I'm reading it for the second time. Now I'm underlining and coloring, because I like to study books and learn from them instead of just reading them. Right. So talk to us about what the impetus was for writing your book, and what was your thought process on writing that book?
I'd never wanted to write a book. I just said, if there was a good book, I'd hand somebody else a book of somebody else, But people would say to me, when Joe DeSena said, you're the fittest and mentally toughest 66-year-old in the world, I knew it wasn't true, but I was appreciative that he said that on a podcast at Dodger Stadium. People would just say, How do you do what you do? Why'd you do that stuff? And I finally felt like I owed it to write down some stuff. And I have a second book that um, I haven't got it published yet, but it's on how to do things. But I thought this book would help people um, know that you could do more than you think you can do. And the fun part has been I've had a lot of fathers. They have got the book, but they've got the audio book. And the audio book is from my website. And I did the narration of the audio book. I didn't want somebody else telling my story. I wanted to tell the story because I wanted to laugh when I told the stories. But I've had a lot of fathers say, we've listened to your book with my kids. And we've turned off the tape and we talk about the principle or the thing that you've done. And we've had these great conversations, fathers with kids. And if that was the only reason I wrote it, that would be a great reason. But I wrote it because I felt maybe some people would learn some things because I'm so grateful for what people have helped me with. And so that's why I wrote it.
All right. Like I said, because a lot of people are satisfied with being average, and that's why I love beyond, going beyond average. But a lot of people are satisfied with being average, but then they complain about being average because they do the shit that the average people do. Like you won't see really six. It's like they say you'll never see a Lamborghini commercial on TV, just for a reason, because the people that own them aren't watching them. So and I think that in order to be above average, you have to change your habits. And like my friend James Clear wrote in his book Atomic Habits, you can make changes, but you can start making even a 1% change in a whole year. You're going to be a different person. But you have
That's
to
right.
start changing your habits. So talk to us about changing habits.
All of us have things that we need to change. And part of that embracing the suck is to begin to do things that you know that are right and good for you, and it's hard. And so habits can change. You can change the neuroplasticity in your brain of the way you think, and you can begin to, once you have your why, then you can go ahead and to begin to make those adjustments. And every time I go into a new training time for a new training thing, I change some habits. I have to stop certain things and start certain things. And I know it's going to be difficult mentally to stop things and then start new things. But if you do it enough, you'll know that it's worth it. And it's just the price of growth. Growth equals change, but change doesn't equal growth. Make sense? If you're going to grow, you're going to have to change stuff. Stop certain things and start doing certain things. If you're going to mentally grow, physically grow, financially grow, mentally grow, you have to stop certain things to get here. And what we say is if you pay now, change those habits, you can play later. You reap the benefits. But if you play now and don't break those habits and don't change those habits, you'll be paying for a long, long time. And so if you get your reason on why it's good to change those habits and start little ones and ask people to hold you accountable. Like, ask me, did you do what you said you're going to do? And I asked 3 or 4 people on a regular basis, ask me, did I do that? Ask me if I did that. If I didn't do it, give me a bad time. Say, well, you told us you're going to do it. You didn't do it. Why did you do it? I mean, give me a bad time. I want help. I need help. And I want the accountability. And so I've changed things. And, I still have to change things. Every decade, if you're going to keep growing, you got to change habits and do different things. And I don't know who's listening to this, but you can't do in your 30s what you did in your 20s. And you can't do in your 40s what you did in your 30s. And you can't do in your 50s what you did in your 40s. And I turned 70. I couldn't do the same things I was doing at 60. I had to change things again. And I don't like change. I'd rather just say, let me just do it this way. But if you're going to keep growing and evolving, you keep adjusting and changing your habits little bit by little bit to be the best for that decade, the best for that time of your life. And you have to start somewhere, and you get around other people that are changing their habits, and it makes it more fun for you too.
All right. So now for the last couple of minutes, like you said, maybe you couldn't do things in your 70s that you did in your 60s. But like I said, I'm a big sports fan. And you have LeBron James or even Michael Jordan at the end of their careers, their shooting percentage went way up, even though they
Yep.
couldn't dunk anymore. They started to be able to shoot from the 3-point line. So they had to adjust, but they're still winning. It's just they have to play the game differently. And I think anybody that succeeds in life, even like the old coach, the coach of the Patriots, he knows how to play the game and he knows the ins and outs of the game. And sometimes you got to change your playing style, right?
You bet. You bet. I watched LeBron yesterday beat the Mavericks. And, he got in that fourth quarter, and all of a sudden he went to his bread and butter plays that no one could stop him. And he just did it over and over at the basket. And the announcer saying, "Look at LeBron." And he just went to stuff that's always worked for him. It's he owns that. He can do that all day long. And there are certain things that when you get to a certain age, you should have some wins. And those wins work for you. And when I do this, I win. And all of us need mental wins, physical wins, relational wins, financial wins. Find what wins and get those wins and make the adjustments at each decade to get wins. And they're different in every decade. And so life is pretty fun when you're winning, and life is pretty sour when you're losing. And that means you have to make the evaluation and what do I got to do to start winning again versus losing? And I have a guy, I said this guy who was a sort of a role model to me in pararescue. Hey, dude, why are you so fat? And he said, well, my ankles, my knees, my this and my that. And I said, do you remember when we were young? You remember how you said you were going to stay healthy forever? And he goes, yeah. I said, you're better than that. You're better than what you are right now. Why don't you kick yourself in the butt and make a comeback? And he looked at me. He started to cry. He said, I'd like to, but I hurt. I said, well, let's find the ways to make the adjustments so that you can get a win in your physical health as well as work with your injuries. And so he's lost his 50 pounds. He's not drinking anymore. He's changed his lifestyle. He calls me, hey, Bobby, hey, Bobby, blah, blah, blah. And I'm so excited for him that he chose to look in the mirror and say, inside of me is that 20-year-old kid and that 30-year-old. And I can reach back into that person and pull him out where I am today. Just make some different kind of adjustments. And he's so excited now to be winning again at life. And I would want every veteran who's listening to this podcast to want to be a winner, to win at life and not just settle. Not just settle. I have lunch with a kid here. He's 23 and he has no legs. He got him blown off in Afghanistan at 21 years old. And I eat lunch with him, and he doesn't have part of his thumb. And so he has one hand with no thumb and he has no legs. And I watch him get in his wheelchair in the car, or, get out of the car in the wheelchair, come over, we have lunch, blah, blah, blah. We talk from vets. And I said to him, are you going to be disabled or are you going to be a winner? And he said, I'm going to be a winner. And I said, well, then what are you going to do? And so he just changed some friends and changed some stuff. He's working out, and he now paddles. If you can imagine, he gets on a long surfboard, a paddle board, and he does long distance paddling. He did Catalina to Long Beach. That's 26 miles with no legs, just with his arms. And he's now racing. And he said, now that I have a goal and I know that I'm not just stuck in my chair and I can do stuff, life is really fun again. I said, dude, you can do anything. And we're for you, we'll help you. We cheer for you. And he found, when I first met him, he was depressed, just woe is me. I don't have any legs. It's hard to go on a date. When, hey, want to go with a guy in a chair, the girls look at you in the chair and he goes, what am I going to do? I said, just keep smiling at him. So he has a bunch of friends now that help him get dates, and exercise and get wins in his life. And he's a happy guy. And I think all of us can still win at life if we want to. And I hope that every veteran listening will want to say, I need a kick in the drawers. I need mentors. I need the right people. I need to stop making excuses. And I'm going to work on my habits and hang around people. And, I hope that many people will contact you and say, Richard, when your podcasts have caused me to get wins. Yeah. You've brought the right people on and they've encouraged me. And it's fun for me because I get, emails and to my website from Austria and Australia and all these different places. Hey, Mr. Owens, I got my win. I'm doing the thing that they told me I couldn't do. And I just cheer for them. I think it's great. But you got to make that decision. Go ahead, Richard.
But, I'm also thinking, as I'm talking about, how you need to remember your wins. Because I know a lot of people I talk to, they can remember every loss they've ever taken, but they don't remember all the wins that they've had in their life. And I think sometimes we have to make them switch from having that whole book full of losses to starting to remember where they won when they were in basic training and they graduated, and when they did all these great things and got all these medals and those awards. A lot of us forget that stuff. I think we need to remember that and replace the old tapes with new tapes. I see on old tapes, they don't even have those anymore. But I think we need to remember our wins and start stacking our wins, like you said.
I have a judge, and he's a Vietnam vet. He was an attorney in the military. Anyway, this is sort of an interesting story. He would drink, and he drank because he never got the snakes out of his head from Vietnam. And so I said to him, hey, Judge, you know what? You need to work on this stuff. He had a survivor guilt because everybody in his helicopter got blown up but him. And he wondered why he was the only one alive. And it just haunted him. And I'd spend time with him. And the juvenile hall in our town was named after him, a pretty prominent judge. Anyway, I said, let's go to Vietnam. And let's get the snakes out of your head. He said, I don't want to go back to Nam. I said, you need to go to Nam. And so I raised the money, said, let's go. You're going to go back to Nam. So I took him back to Nam. And he had to go through the whole survival guilt thing of, why am I the only guy? Anyway, when he went back to the place where the helicopter was shot up, where he died, it was all jungle. And there was no one there anymore. And there were little kids in the jungle in the where the Vietnamese people were living and stuff. And he just thought, I'm the only one who's got this in my head. The world has moved on. There is no place anymore. It's gone. I got this thing stuck in my head. And I said, are you ready now to let it go? And he said, yeah. And I said, good. Now, do you need to drink as much as you drink? And he said, no. And I said, good, because it's over. It's over. It's done. Let it go. And he changed. Came home and people said, what happened to Judge in Vietnam? He had his moment and he just let it go. I had another guy, I was speaking to a bunch of men, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And there's this guy with gray hair, and he's standing in the back of the room. And as I'm talking, doing my thing's over, they all clap, and he just stares at me in the back of the room. And so I wonder what the deal was. And all of a sudden, when everybody else was gone, then he walked up the aisle, middle place, and I just waited for him. Hey, what's up? How are you? He had gray hair and stuff. And I said, so how'd it go? He said, you were good today. I said, I was, huh? Well, what makes me good? He said, you got to me. I said, I got to you like what? What does that mean, I got to you? And he just looks at me and he sticks his hand in his pocket. Doesn't break eye contact, just stares at me. And then he lifts up his hand like I'm showing you on the screen. And he just holds it out like that. And I go, I guess I'm supposed to put my hand underneath. Is this what I'm supposed to do? And he goes, yeah. And then he opened his hand, dropped it. And he dropped a bracelet. And I thought, this is a weird looking bracelet. It looked like popcorn, old burnt popcorn. I'm looking at this bracelet and I go, those are teeth. And I said, are these teeth? He goes, yeah. And I said, are these teeth of the guys that you killed in Vietnam? Yeah. I said, so after you shot him, you went and grabbed a pair of pliers and pulled teeth out? He goes, yeah. Those are the guys that killed my friends. And I said, so you had these teeth strung together on this as a bracelet? He goes, yep. I said, you've been thumbing that thing in your pocket? Since when? He said, 69. I said, you thumb this thing like a rosary every day? Just thumbing that thing. He goes, yep. I go, what happened? He goes, I think I'll forgive him and let him go. I said, wow, that's good. It's only been 45 years. He goes, I think today's the day to let him go. Here, you can have the bracelet. I said, hey, well, thanks. And he looked at me and shook my hand and walked away. So he'd held that non-win. He held that bitterness and that he held that for 4. I said, how many marriages have you been through? He said, 4. I said, I bet. He goes, yeah, I wasn't the happiest guy in the world to be around. I said, okay, you ready to go? He goes, yeah, I'm ready to start a new life. He was like 60, I don't know, 63, 64 years old, I thought, wow, that's a long time to thumb that sucker, But people need to have wins and let go of the past. Let it go and say it's over. And I'm not going to let that thing, whatever it is, keep me wherever it is. And it takes courage. Mark Devine from SEALFIT, he and I, Navy SEAL commander, we say it takes strong men can ask for help and change because it doesn't affect their manhood. Weak men can't ask for help. Why? Because they think it's going to take something away from what people perceive in them. And it's about image. I got to keep my act together like I got it together versus I'm telling you I don't have it together and I need help and it's okay to ask for help. And I hope that the listeners will know that a man or woman, they can ask for help. It's okay. It's not going to change anything except for if they're insecure and they don't want people to know that they asked for help because it's embarrassing. I've been asking for help all my life. I've needed help all my life. And once you get used to admitting I need help, it's not so bad. And so I would encourage vets here to ask for help. Strong men can ask for help. It's okay. And then work on their habits and change their habits and develop ways to get these wins in their life. And they can see that they can do things. They can start over. They can make it. But most guys, they're too proud and they just, I don't have any problems. I'm good. All good. F this, F that, blah, blah, blah. And you just shake your head and just think, man, if the guy would just grow up and just own his stuff and say, I have issues, he could have a great life. But he's in denial and he's embarrassed and he's insecure. So I don't know who that's for out there, but
that's probably for me.
Well,
but I'm a guy that I have no problem showing my feelings. I'll cry at the top of a hat. It doesn't bother me. I took my bride. I call her my bride. She's my wife, my best friend. We went to go see Neil Diamond's A Beautiful, I forget the name of the musical. And I actually sat and started crying because the day before I had to go talk to a bunch of veterans that are in treatment for alcohol and drugs at the VA. And we started talking about how important self-talk is. What we say to ourselves is so much more important about what we say to others. And then his song came on that he started singing was, I even wrote it down, I said, and it broke me down because we are who we are. We are who we tell us we are. Like, I know I don't drink, so I don't drink. I'm not a man who drinks. You know, there's certain things like you're an athlete. That's it. You're an athlete. That's who you are. You know, and so I think our self talk, we really have to reel in our self talk and say, you know, I always cheat on my diet, or you know, I'm always going to be out of shape. I'm always going to be unhealthy. Well, you're always going to be if you keep using that self talk. Correct?
That's right. And that's a whole nother podcast. You know, the whole self-talk, rewiring your mind, breaking the negativity, cutting that tape inside there, rewiring the computer. You can do that. And guys can rewire their minds and have the self-talk change. And once you do that, because we train our students, there's 4 steps for you in this whole process of change and winning. And one of them is self-talk. So, you know, all the time, why'd you say that? Or don't say that. Why'd you say that? And have somebody call you out on those things like, that was stupid. You don't need to say that. That's not going to help you. That's not what you really want to believe. Anyway, getting converted to the positive from the negative, it takes work, but you can do it. It's wonderful when it happens.
All right, Robert. So how do we, okay, first of all, because like we've talked about Mark Devine and I've had him on the show before. So how do we get in touch with that organization? And then we'll talk about your stuff. But I also want to give them the props because they're such an amazing organization.
Yeah, I work for Mark. And so it's called SEALFIT, like a CrossFit gym. It's called SEALFIT.com. And Mark has the Unbeatable Mind program, which is a great program on rewiring your mind to have an unbeatable mind. We work on self-mastery. I was just on the water this morning talking to students at Crew. I coach at Orange Coast Crew. Anyway, talk to these kids about their thinking in the first 500 meters, the 1,000 meters, 1,500, and the 2,000 meter race, their mind and their breathing. But anyway, Mark Devine teaches all that stuff. And if you go to SEALFIT.com, you can learn it there, or you can go to his Unbeatable Mind program, or just go to YouTube and, you know, go to box breathing and go to emotional control and emotional resiliency and all those kind of things at SEALFIT. And that's a great place to go. Or they can contact me, you know, they can go to my website, roberthamiltonowens.com, and I'll answer them. I'll talk to them. But there's a lot of good material, like you have Atomic Habits. There's good books out there that you can get, and you can start helping yourself.
So then how do we find your book? How do we find your amazing book?
My book is called Beyond Average because I was always average. And when these guys got a hold of me, they told me to stop living average. And then when I got beyond average, I found a life. I found that I was smarter, gifted, my self-worth, you know, grew. All the stuff happened when I got the average out of my brain. And you can go to Amazon and pick it up. Or you can go to my website, which is, again, Robert Hamilton Owens, Hamilton like the stage play. And the audiobook is there. My audiobook is not on Audible because Audible does not let you ad lib your book. So if you were to take your book and record it, you have to say exact same words that are in the book. And I don't want to do that because my editor cut out a bunch of stuff I thought was fun. So I said, I want to do the book, but I want to say the book doesn't say this, but this is what really happened, blah, blah, blah. And I'm laughing and doing it. Then we go back and read the book. Anyway, so you can go to my website and get that book. A lot of guys, you know, go down the freeway or go to work and they listen to my book and they email me. But it's called Beyond Average by Robert Owens, or Robert Hamilton Owens, whatever it is. And Amazon or bookstores, Barnes and Noble, or you can go get the audiobook off my website.
I love it, guys. So make sure you pick up the book. Like I said, I'm on my second iteration, and I can't wait to finish reading it again. And I'll probably read it a few more times because I'm a learning addict. So, Robert, just want to say thank you, my friend. I'm so grateful and humble that we finally got a chance. With my mom being sick and everything, I had to reschedule some things. So thank you for being so gracious with your time.
No problem. And thank you for what you're doing and the work that you're doing and the encouragement you're bringing to vets and to everybody else. And I appreciate that. And if I can ever help you in the future, feel free to call on me. And I just appreciate your hard work. And to all the vets out there, why don't you write Richard and send him some sort of a comment of what you got from this podcast or from any podcast. You know, Richard needs encouragement too. And so if you would give him feedback on how these podcasts are working or helping you, he would really appreciate that. We all appreciate encouragement. So To all you listeners out there, make sure you make comments to Richard and say, hey, that guy's a jerk, never have him again. Or hey, that guy, have him come back and talk about neuroplasticity, rewiring the mind or something. But make sure Richard gets some comments from you guys.
I love it. Thank you, Robert. And guys, like my t-shirt says, today I decide. I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and he always says you get to decide whether to be the victim or the victor. So guys, if you're watching this, please make that decision to be the victor and not the victim anymore. Thank you so much, guys. I love you guys. And remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is but up. And I will catch you guys on next week. Robert, thank you so much, brother. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you, guys.